afternoon. Welcome to this class. The topic for today's discussion is women's participation in Panchayats. Now, as we all know, that local self-governments had existed in India since ancient times. This find references in the Vedas, in the Puranas, in the Smritis, and books on statecrafts and religious texts. All this describe vividly about the existence of these self-governing institutions. In the past, the Panchayati Raj system was confined to solve social problems with the help of 5 senior members of the village called Panchas, from which Panchayat derived its name. Now, we all know that women involvement in Indian politics was not so much before the advent of Gandhi. But with the advent of Gandhi, women became more and more involved with politics when Gandhi gave a clarion call to all to join the movement. Now, when Swaraj was declared, Gandhiji said, as long as women of India did not take part in public life, there could be no salvation for the country. He further said that he had no use for the kind of Swaraj to which women have not made their full contribution. In this regard, Gandhian view prevailed and Panchayats became the foundation of self-government. Article 40 of the Indian Constitution enshrines one of the directive principles of state policy. It lays down that the state shall take steps to organize village panchayats, and such powers would be invested on them which would help them to function effectively. The Constitution of India guarantees to all men and women the right to equality and political participation through universal adult franchise. Article 15 of the Constitution prohibits discrimination on ground of sex. And Article 15, Part 3 of Article 15 enacts that nothing in Article 15 shall prevent the state from making any special provisions for women and children. From this, it follows that while there can be no discrimination on ground of sex, there can be no stopping of the government if it decides to allow some provisions to the upliftment of women and deprived groups. The Community Development Program, launched in 1952, concentrated on the rural areas and the rural population. Within a few years of the start of the Community Development Initiative, a women's component was started as an integral part of the program. The government kept on adding various activities from time to time to help the rural women. Actually, the Community Development Program was initiated to raise the standard of living of all, irrespective of caste and sex. And Jawaharlal Nehru said that it was his dream to see that each and every section of the population were leading a life that they deserved, that every human deserved. The Balwant Rai Mehta Committee, set up in 1957, recommended the creation of a 3-tier system of Panchayati Raj institutions to execute rural development programs through people's participation. One of the salient features of the Balwant Rai Mehta Committee report was the provision to co-opt 2 women in all the 3 tiers after the elections had been held. The committee also specified that the selection of the 2 women could be based on the interest they took in activities relating to welfare of women and children. This indeed was the first occasion when women were able to have a role in the Panchayati Raj system, though not as elected members. Therefore, in many parts of India, women were nominated into Panchayat by co-option rather than election, and their representation was something like tokenism. The State Acts in 1950 and early 1960s reflected this ideology and consensus. In 1974, the next important step in the history of rural women took place when the Committee on the Status of Women in India, that is the CSWI, strongly recommended that women should be provided with special opportunities for participation in the representative structure of local government, as the present form of association of women did not serve any purpose, did not actually uplift them. In 1977, again, a committee under Ashok Mehta was set up to look into the matter and suggest means to ensure better participation of women in local bodies. It, however, also continued women's token representation, but it suggested that if no women were elected, two women who would get the highest number of votes in Zilla Parishad, in Zilla Panchayats, they could become members. In the event, if no women came forward for election, two women might be co-opted. In spite of all this, women's representation in all the Gram and Zilla Panchayats remained very low, and their participation in the decision making or meetings was also in proxy. Either like it was the male members who were taking the decision for them or the village elites. Now, with a view to improve the role and status of women in India, the National Perspective Plan for Women 1988 to 2000 clearly recommended that 30% reservation of seats should be made in favor of women at village panchayat to Zilla Parishad level and at the municipal bodies. It took nearly 40 years for women to find political representation in the formal political institutions. Now, of course, the road was not easy. The 64th Constitutional Amendment Bill, which was aimed at strengthening and revitalizing the Panchayati Raj Institutions, was introduced in the Lok Sabha on 15th May 1989 by the then Prime Minister, late Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. It must be seen for the first time that a Prime Minister proposed a constitutional amendment on a subject of local self-government in a federal democracy. The special feature of the bill was the reservation of seats for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and also 30% reservation for women. In spite of putting so much effort on the bill, it was not implemented. Now, this would lead to the 73rd Amendment Act 1992. Now, what led to the 73rd Amendment Act? Keeping in mind the importance of women as human resource contributing to development, their participation in democratic process was envisaged, and when the previous bill could not see the light of the day, there was again an endeavor to make sure that a proper bill could be passed by the Parliament. And as a first step, representation of rural women in political process was ensured by a specific provision incorporated in the Constitution through the 73rd Amendment 1992. What were the provisions of the 73rd Amendment Act? The Act provides for 1/3 reservation for women in all the 3 tiers of the Panchayati Raj system and is a step towards moving inequality, powerlessness, and invisibility of women. Women had so long been kept away from public life, from participating in political process. So this act was a first step in doing away with that. The 73rd Amendment Act is a landmark in the history of women's development, and one must see it as a revolutionary step towards women participation in actual decision making and in political process in the country at the grassroots level. With the amendment, women's representation in Panchayati bodies increased in many states for almost 2-3% to at least 30 or 32% before 1985, whereas only 2 women in each of the states of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Punjab, Rajasthan and West Bengal participated in Panchayati Raj Institutions. In 1995, their representation increased to 33.3% in Gujarat, 38% in Madhya Pradesh, 30.2% in Punjab, 32.4% in Rajasthan and 35.4% in West Bengal. And the state of UP, where there was no representation of women before 1985, in Panchayati Raj Institutions, this changed after 1995, where they occupied 29.6%. So this was definitely a positive change, and these provisions of the 73rd Amendment Act definitely was a step forward towards the real emancipation of women. Now, the thing is, this scenario brought about by provision of constitutional framework for democratic decentralization through these amendments provides a stark contrast if we look at the previous situation. If you were asked to make a comparison between the previous situation and the situation after this amendment, then you would see that while in earlier periods, in terms of the state panchayat laws, 2 or only 3 members who were mostly nominated and in a few cases were elected just provided token representation for women in local bodies, as I harp on the word token representation, without any real power. Now, since they were mostly nominated, like they only had nominated status, these women could not command clout, and their decisions could not be enforced. They could not take proper part in this decision making, because this decision making were monopolized by the male members and the village elites, who were already too much steeped in patriarchy to allow women participation, to allow a woman have any say in these bodies. Before these amendments, you see, doubts were also raised whether if these amendments were made, if attempts were made to bring women into this political scenario where they be available. Now, we would see whether the women were actually available. The question that now arises after the amendment: how did the women make their presence felt? Well, the answer is women have indeed been available in large numbers. They have accessed positions in panchayats through the reservation route and have been gaining hands-on experience in shouldering responsibilities along with their male counterparts. Now, of course, patriarchy is steeped in the system, and there was a perceived threat of male losing their domination in the political system. And so there has always been an attempt to undermine the potential and achievements of elected women in the PRIs, that is in the Panchayati Raj Institutions, and their achievements were not recognized in the beginning. They were mostly dismissed as proxies of their husbands or the village elites, because it was thought that the woman's role was confined to her home. She was better off in the kitchen than having a say and actually wielding power in government bodies. However, what we see, the women, the feminine's innate capacity to understand the process of governance and to lead the affairs of panchayats have been remarkable. Though her endeavor has been put under scanner several times, this has not been able to stop her progress. Many women elected representatives, despite facing hurdles, have made their mark in bringing positive changes in these areas. Now, the question that arises, how the women have made their presence felt. It's not a general remark that the women have made their presence felt. There are instances of women heading as sarpanch in the panchayat system who have actually made a significant change in the society. For instance, an example that you might want to know is that an MBA graduate quit her corporate career with one of the country's biggest telecom firms to become the sarpanch of Soda Gram Panchayat in Rajasthan and has been working ever since to ensure clean water, solar power, paved roads, toilets and a bank to the village. Women sarpanch of Dhani, Mia Khan Gram Panchayat in Haryana built a training center for women and ensured that every village child went to school. Women have been taking initiative to train their fellow women in computer, in training them to teach their family members the basic things about sanitation, hygiene. And during the COVID times, the women sarpanch have played clearly a very important role in immunizing the populace. And we see the interesting part or the optimistic thing is women are quitting lucrative job positions to join as in the panchayats. So this is definitely not a dismal picture. So as we see, women have been leading the way. Women throughout India, from Odisha to Assam to Uttar Pradesh to Bihar, are ensuring that roads are repaired, electricity is brought to their villages, schools are built, latrines installed, medical services are available, water sources are made safe, and they also ensure that local saving groups are formed, and the list goes on. Now, a study conducted by India Spend in 2017 in 6 districts of Tamil Nadu has found that 60% of women elected representatives of the Panchayati Raj Institutions are functioning independently of their male family members or colleagues. And all the elected women representatives of these PRIs have been able to achieve this. However, this does not mean that all the hurdles have vanished. The question that arises, what are the roadblocks? What are the things that are stopping the woman in getting what she deserves, in making her presence felt? Well, the answer to the question lies in our society. In a society steeped in patriarchy, a woman's progress is not without obstacles, except a few tribal societies, particularly in the northeast. Indian society still continues to be male-dominated. Many elected women representatives continue to work as sort of a rubber stamp for their male members, and also at times as proxies of rural elites. The second hurdle for a woman is the caste system. The hierarchical caste system in rural India makes it difficult for women from SC and ST communities to function independently and effectively. Khap panchayats function parallel to panchayats and pressurizes elected women representatives to act in a particular way. Then there is also lack of cooperation from line or sectoral departments. The elected women representatives especially the first timers, they find it really difficult to deal with this, to deal with the cooperation at the block level, at the Zilla level, and they are stuck more than once in this red tapeism, which saps their zeal to work. Then of course their inadequate, in some cases the inadequate capacities of the elected women representatives are to be blamed, because what we see is that most of the elected women representatives enter into the public life for the first time, and they do not have the adequate skills and knowledge. And of course the government conducts training programs, but not always they can attend it because they do not get the permission of their male members of their family to go and attend these programs. Then policy of reservation for one term and rotation of reserved seats and posts of chairpersons also hinders consolidation of leadership qualities among elected women representatives, as it takes time for them to learn the skills, and once they learn the skills they find that the term is over with no scope for reservation in the next term. Then the elected women representatives also have to deal with other problems. For instance, they face resistance from community if they want to remove encroachment from Panchayati land or properties. Many a time they are subjected to violence from powerful elements of the society. Many rural households also do not want to pay tax and expect the panchayats to deliver public services. So all these are roadblocks for women's role in panchayat. Now, what we see? So what is the present situation? Do we see any ray of hope? Do women elected representatives in panchayat have a way to overcome this? We know that the 73rd Constitutional Act mandated reservation for women and marginalized communities in Panchayati Raj institutions across India. Yet, as we commemorated the passage of the amendment on the National Panchayati Raj Day on 24th April, the tangible and transformative contribution of grassroots women leaders remain sidelined. We don't focus on their achievements. The 1992 amendment proved to be a very significant step, bringing more than 14.5 lakh women into leadership in the grassroots level. Today, as many as 20 states, including Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Himachal Pradesh, Jharkhand, Karnataka, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Odisha, Punjab, Rajasthan, Sikkim, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Tripura, Uttarakhand, and West Bengal have increased reservations for women in their Panchayati Raj institutions to 50%. Many states, such as Karnataka, have more than 50% women representatives in Panchayati Raj institutes, which indicates that women are now winning seats beyond their reserved seats. So this is indeed quite a positive picture. Now, the thing that is something that hints at a ray of light, at a glimmer of hope, is that politics and governance, which for so long had been the privilege of men, are now changing, at least at the grassroots. India, of course, has been a front runner in various dimensions of women's achievement. In political participation also, India does not lag much behind. There are several success stories of women's leadership as prime ministers, as cabinet ministers, as chief ministers, and many more. Today, women leaders in Panchayati Raj institutes have come up to their role as independent achievers, making their way in a domain in which they have been historically excluded. Recently, the President of India, Srimati Draupadi Murmu, presented the National Panchayat Awards and inaugurated the National Conference on Incentivization of Panchayats in New Delhi last April, that is on April 17, 2023. Speaking on the occasion, the President said that despite rapid urbanization over the past few decades, most of our countrymen still live in villages. Even those who dwell in towns, they have a very close connection with the village. So the progress of the village is actually linked with the progress of the entire country. And the President further added that panchayats are not just means for implementing government programs or initiatives, but it is also a place where new ideas can be formed, where new experiments can be made, so that it can be brought out from the narrowness that has shrouded village life for a long time. And she further added that by adopting the best practices of one panchayat in other panchayats, we can quickly develop and make our village prosperous. Of course, the President added that for this holistic development of the society, it is of utmost necessity that women come forward. And she said that women should have the right to make decisions for themselves, for their families, and for the society as whole. This right, she felt, could be achieved through their empowerment in family and at village level. She was happy to note that out of more than 31.5 lakh elected representatives of local rural bodies, 46% are women. She urged women to actively participate in the work of the Gram Panchayats. She also appealed to the families to support them, because everything starts with the family for most of women. Speaking on this occasion, the Union Minister of Rural Development and Panchayati Raj, Shri Giriraj Singh, said that there are 21 states that have made 50% reservation for women in the three-tier panchayats. He called upon the remaining states to provide reservation for women beyond the 33% constitutional provision in the panchayats. Of course, reservation is not the only solution. However, in societies steeped in bias against the women, this is the prime prerequisite. So what we see is that women's role in panchayat have really expanded, and it is indeed a positive development that the women have embraced the public life apart from her home and hearth. Thank you.